place, a remarkable turnout. I see lots of friends and neighbors. Fred, Kelly, I'm sure you're here somewhere. I guess we're in the Saltworks watershed. There you are. Flowing into the Severn River. This is a great day. But it's tempered by the reality, I think, of Will's remarks. I must admit I can't quibble with much of them. I think many of us have been in the trenches here for many, many years. I remember my first introduction was the 1983 Bay Agreement. Then Governor Robb and Harry Hughes pledging to save the Bay. This, of course, was a pretty general document at the time, 3 paragraphs long, as I remember. Followed up in 1987 by what we thought of as the very specific first solution to saving Chesapeake Bay, where we pledged to reduce nutrients by 40% by the year 2000. Well, guess what? It didn't happen. And then in 2000, we had another Bay Agreement that pledged to meet water quality standards by the year 2010. Guess what? It's 2009 and we're not even close. And I think this is the unfortunate reality that we are facing today, is that we have to look at game-changing solutions. And I think Dr. Bosch and Will talked about some of these that are precisely the kinds of things that we are now examining very closely at EPA. This president has been in office just about a little over half a year. There's a lot of challenges facing this nation. There's a lot of challenges on environment alone facing this nation. I can't come here tonight and tell you the precise game plan that we are going to use to change this game of the Chesapeake Bay, but I can tell you that we're going to do the best that we can, and we've got some pretty darn good ideas, and to stay tuned. The executive order talked about September 9th as the first series of public documents that we are going to issue. You will see an additional set of documents coming out in November, and it is my hope that you will in fact find a series of ideas that in fact can improve the quality of life that all of us expect here in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. A little bit of specifics about the challenge. The scientists tell us, generally speaking, we want to get to a number of about 175 million pounds of nitrogen in Chesapeake Bay. They've got some similar numbers for phosphorus, and hopefully they're working on some for sediment. These numbers, they say, will define for us a safe Chesapeake Bay. Well, you ask yourself, well, where are we today? And the answer is probably in the ballpark of 320 million pounds, give or take 10 to 15 million pounds. Guess what? From here to there, it's about a 40% reduction in nutrients. And here we are in 2009. So how do we get there? Are there in fact paths to solve this problem? I firmly believe the answer is yes, or bluntly I wouldn't have taken this job. But as Will suggests, it is a series of difficult challenges that we're going to face. First and foremost, when you look at the various sources of pollution, you've got to start with looking at urban and suburban development. In my 28 years here in Maryland, this landscape has changed phenomenally. This road, Bestgate Road, I remember my first meeting at EPA at the regional lab down here. It was a 2-lane road, and that shopping mall over there was a cornfield. That was 27 years ago. Today, urban and suburban runoff is the only source of pollution to Chesapeake Bay that is in fact growing. There is more turf grass in the watershed today than corn. In counties like Montgomery County, Fairfax County, Baltimore County, the percent of the entire landscape that is turf grass is in between 40 and 45%. The amount of commercial fertilizer that you can imagine is applied to this land is very significant. The impervious surface itself creates all kinds of flashiness and runoff problems that you see probably in your communities everywhere. This is as I said, the only growing source of pollution to Chesapeake Bay. The good news is, I think there are some solutions here. It's not going to be easy, but we have to look at all very stringent new development standards, redevelopment standards to control the runoff pollution from these developments. And we also must look at how to retrofit some of these existing places. This mall was built back before we had very strong stormwater control structures. How can we work with the owners of this mall, hopefully in an accountable structure, to get the kind of stormwater improvements that are necessary to improve Saltworks Creek? And I think this one actually drains, the mall drains in part to another watershed. Weeds. Oh, it comes into Weeds Creek. The other big huge area that we have to focus on, of course, is the agricultural sector. Roughly speaking, this is about half the load to the Chesapeake Bay. There's no question that we've made a lot of improvements in agriculture, but at the same time, given its total volume, there's no way we can get to the path to saving Chesapeake Bay without significant improvements in agriculture. The good news here is these are probably the most cost-effective controls that we can do anywhere in the watershed. When you compare the relative costs of controlling a pound of nitrogen from agriculture versus the Westfield Mall here, it literally can be 100 to 1 cheaper to do it from an agricultural source. We also have got, I think, a new enthusiasm from the agriculture community to work with us. I'm not going to overstate that because these are clearly challenges that we face in the political world that we all have to operate in the context of this economy, where many in this ag sector, particularly say the dairy industry, is incredibly hard hit these days. And so we have to find some ways to ultimately work this together. I want to listen to you tonight. I want to close with a couple of comments. The Clean Air Act in this country has performed, I think, tremendously well. And that's in large part because it controls pollution from virtually all sources of air pollution to this country. Will talked about our permitting programs, and I'll be the first to admit that we have to make improvements in our permitting programs. But it is also true that today, only 40% of all sources of pollution to the Chesapeake Bay are actually regulated by the federal or state governments. I don't think we get to a clean bay if that number stays at only 40%, and if we have an accountability system that is simply lacking for achieving these kinds of endpoints that we want. We have to find a way of building more accountability and more performance into the system, like the Clean Air Act, and then I think we have some promise for success. Our biggest challenge when I look forward is dealing with construction and development activities, urban-suburban runoff, and agriculture. Together, it's my hope we can find a way to solve this in a much more accountable way, and we can actually have a healthy Chesapeake Bay that my kids and we can all be proud of. Thank you.